So what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Today we're here with a old friend of the show. You may not have seen her before. The last time she was on here about 4 years ago, but Dr. Janice here and I go way back on the YouTube streets, way before all this new stuff started happening on YouTube. And she knows the history of YouTube with a lot of content creators, different things that we've seen change over the years. But we all have grown over the years, and we're great about that. So now, at the time, she was a doctor, so she is Dr. Janice Gassam Asare. Am I saying the last name correct?
You said it perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, because me being in the South, I mess up names a lot with my accent. So, Dr. Janice, thank you for joining us on the show once again.
Thank you so much for having me, and congratulations, because I believe that last time I saw you, I don't think you all had hit the 1 million mark. So congratulations on that. Congratulations on all the success and the growth of your channel, and it's been just amazing to see.
All right, well, thank you for that. And like I said, all the success I've seen you writing columns in Forbes magazine now, and boy, you have expanded. You got a podcast I've seen as well. So you're growing too, and that's awesome. I love to see Black people grow and not be stagnant. So for people that never seen you before, they wasn't here 4 years ago, the first time you came on, tell people just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, and thank you again for the opportunity to speak to your audience. So my name is Dr. Janice Gassam Asare. I am a consultant, so I work with small and large organizations and institutions. And I'm gonna have to work on, I got a new webcam, so I keep forgetting to look right here. But I work with small and large organizations and institutions to help them create more inclusive environments. So as you can imagine, in the last year, business for me has really, really expanded, where a lot of companies are calling me to facilitate workshops on anti-racism, on anti-oppression, on equity, on racial equity. So I do DEI consulting, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting. But my specialty, or what I really focus on, is race, and more specifically anti-Black racism and the ways that it manifests in the workplace, and what company leaders can do to create more inclusive workplaces. I'm also, as Phil stated, a writer. Writing is my first love. So I write columns on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm also a professor. I teach courses in management, and one of the courses that I teach is on diversity in the workplace. I also teach employee engagement, talent development, and human resource management. So that is just a little bit about me. I also have a YouTube channel here. I have been MIA though. There's been a lot of changes, as Phil stated, on YouTube. And I was finding that a lot of my content was being censored or was not as visible as it was before. When I post things that would usually get 1,000 views within the first day or so, I was finding that my content visibility was limited. So I think for me, it was a bit frustrating. I'm still making content, but it's few and far between. And this interview should be like the kick that I need to get back on the YouTube horse, because I know it's been a great platform for a lot of Black content creators, which I can appreciate. But that is just a little bit about me. On YouTube, I'm Janice J Nice, or I used to be Baby Girl JZG. I think it was 1987 or something was my username. But yeah, so that is just a little bit about me.
All right, so you said something that sparked my interest when you talk about these corporations that is calling you, because when George Floyd happened and they started saying, "Oh, we want to be more inclusive and we want to start reaching out to more, Black companies to work with," and things like that, correct? But then you seen people like Byron Allen came out saying, "Well, why you not sharing the ad dollars then? What's going on with that?" That's just one thing that came up. Why don't you partner with Black businesses then? Where are you? So if that's the take and what people are saying, which I can relate that to be true, what are they actually saying to you when they call you?
So usually they'll reach out, they'll find me through an article, or they'll find me through like my website, or I'm on LinkedIn a lot. So people will find me there and say, "Hey, we want you to." So a lot of the work that I was doing was focused on white people. educating white people, white leaders on how to be less racist. And just in the last year, I've really tried to shift the focus of my work because I'm like, I'm tired of centering white people in the things that I do. And white people's education is not what to me is going to liberate Black people. We need to be centering the needs of Black people and the most marginalized. What do Black people need to feel supported and to thrive? And I don't think that's a question we really ask. We are thinking about, how do we educate white people and make them more aware of their unconscious bias? And I've been telling companies, stop asking me. I don't do unconscious bias trainings. They're useless. But they've been asking for those, and they've been asking. And I'm like, you being aware of your unconscious bias is not necessarily going to make you less racist. We need policy change. We need systemic changes. So I've really tried to shift and tried to help these leaders shift their mindset from like, how do we educate white people on racism, to like, this is what anti-Blackness is in the workplace. And these are some ways we can remove the systemic barriers.
Oh, see, you know, they calling the right one. Because, see, if they'll call me to teach them, I have no problem teaching them about their racism. I would have no problem doing it. Matter of fact, I would want a Black person in the room when I'm doing it. And I guarantee you, after I teach them about their racism, they're probably not going to call me back.
Yeah.
Because you obviously you must be doing it in a way where they okay with you. Because you know the first thing I'm gonna tell all of them is this: I'm explaining to them what white supremacy is, what I define as a white supremacist.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna shock them the next day and say, every last one of you in this room are white supremacists.
Yeah.
That'll freak them all out.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I know. So what was really interesting is, Phil, like in 2019, I had companies that would reach out to me and say, can you do this workshop? I would say, sure. And they'd say, but don't talk about white supremacy. Don't talk about systemic racism. And back in the day, I used to say, okay, I was just starting out. I started my consulting business, officially in 2018. So I was just starting out and I wanted the clients. So I didn't want to mess up the opportunity. If a large, well-known company is calling me to ask me to do something, I was just excited about the opportunity. So I didn't want to lose the opportunity. And what I've realized is that that's not what changes people. People are so afraid of being uncomfortable. So I've moved away from that. And I've had clients that don't call me back once they see what my focus is on and how I center Black people and how I focus on anti-Blackness. And I've had people say, well, can we, like, you talk a lot about racism and Black stuff. Can we like talk about things that apply to more people? Can we focus on the LGBTQIA plus community? Can we focus on all these other types of isms? And I will always say the crux of oppression is anti-Blackness. So if we don't understand anti-Blackness, we can't have a conversation on this type of marginalization or this type of oppression or this or that. Everything goes back to anti-Blackness. So I've had companies not call me back and not reach out to me. I probably lost opportunities because I say, I don't do unconscious bias training. I'm not going to waste your time. I'm not going to waste my time. I'm not going to take the money to like waste it's useless. And I'll tell them that. And I've had them say, okay, well, thank you. Do you have anyone else you can recommend that does do unconscious bias training? So I've lost opportunities, even in the last year, because I'm like, if it's going to be a waste of time, it's just not a good look for me. But there's folks who a lot of people feel are going into this industry because they see that it's lucrative. Prior to George Floyd being murdered, it was an $8 billion industry. Diversity and inclusion was $8 billion with a B.
Wow.
Now that's tripled, quadrupled. So a lot of folks now, I'm seeing everybody is like a DEI expert. You know, and what frustrates me is seeing white people call themselves anti-racism experts. I've been seeing a lot of those crop up, and I'm just like, I don't believe in being inauthentic just for money, just to get the bag and just to like. But I know some people who maybe would say, hey, it's a form of reparations. If they're going to pay me and they want me to talk about this, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna talk about this, you know? So I don't know, me personally, if I don't feel like it's gonna make an impact, I'm not gonna do it, or I'm gonna let them know this is not what I do.
Okay, so basically what you're saying these training sessions is an extremely watered down session that you can't talk about white supremacy. You can't talk about anything really specific that's happens. They want you to come in and say, hey, you know, these things that you're doing, it could be viewed as racist toward black people. And maybe you guys just, you know, think about what you're saying. They don't want the hard truths coming at them about how their actions is literally life threatening and psychologically terrorizes black people. They really don't want to hear that, right?
Well, I think prior to the murder of George Floyd, that
Mhm.
was 99%. They did not want, they said, don't talk about white supremacy, don't talk
Mhm.
about even white privilege. But after George
Mm.
Floyd, I've been seeing more companies who are like, yeah, we want you to talk about this. We want you to talk about white supremacy. I've had people ask me specifically, can you do this workshop on anti-blackness? I've never had that have that conversation before. So there's companies that are open. There's still some hesitance, and even with some clients I've worked with, they've said to me, okay, we spent the year talking about black issues and race, like what else can you talk about, like can you deviate from that, like because some employees are getting tired of talking about black issues and they wonder why we don't talk about issues that are going on in their groups. And again, I say anti-blackness is at the crux of everything. If you don't understand anti-blackness, you're not going to understand Asian hate. You're not going to understand whatever. Everything goes back to anti-blackness. So I try to help them understand that, but there's still pushback from companies and employees who are like, okay, we've had a year where we've been talking about Black Lives Matter. Can we talk about something else now? So I've been seeing this fatigue from non-black people of color and from white people who are like, okay, what else can we talk about? Can we focus on something else? And it's frustrating again, but I try to remind clients that anti-blackness is at the crux of everything. If you understand anti-blackness and anti-black racism and the origins of anti-black racism in this country, in the UK, in France, in all of these places, then I think that you'll understand all other forms of oppression. And there's a quote by the Combahee River Collective, which is a group of Black feminists, and they say, if Black women were free, it would mean all other groups would be able to be free. So if you free the most marginalized people, everyone else will benefit. And so I try to tell these leaders that, like, you're not focusing only on Black people, you're putting programs and policies in place that benefit Black people, but they will benefit, like, by default, everybody else who's marginalized in the workplace.
So you mentioned something, diversity. You know, you said, is it called? You said diversity inclusion experts, correct?
Yeah, so DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So a lot
O-
of people, for short, just call it DEI.
Okay, so this is my thoughts about this, right? The term, and I'm not in everything I'm about to say. I'm about to say it just my opinion.
Mhm,
I'm saying this with the utmost respect.
mhm.
I have an issue with diversity and inclusion, and let me tell you why. Because it's like we as black people are still asking for jobs when we can create our own, right? And it's like these companies, I mean, you admit that did not even want you to really discuss what they wanted to hire you for. They say, yeah, we want you to talk about it, but don't talk about white supremacy, don't talk about this, don't talk about that. Okay, maybe after George Floyd, they'll hear about a few more things, but the natives are restless already saying, okay, all right, all that anti-black, cool. Can we talk about, like you said, LGBT? Can we talk about feminism? Can we talk about all these different things? And you like, okay. So really, at the end of the day, they don't really care. Now, let me ask you a question. We talking about diversity.
Mhm.
These companies that you've been, working with, how is the staff been looking? How's the higher ups been looking that are black? Is it plentiful? Is it minor? Or like, what is it?
Minor.
Minor.
And minor. And usually I'm called to address those specific issues. So it's been pretty minor. So usually it's like a lack of diversity in the higher ranks. Sometimes it's a lack of diversity, period. Sometimes it's like specific issues. Maybe somebody posted something on social media and it caused issues. So they're calling me in to like address the comments that were made. But I've never been in like a mostly black company or a mostly person of color company. I've never like helped any of those sorts of like I work with universities as well, and it's all predominantly white institutions that I've worked with.
Okay, so what could you do for Black-owned companies then? Let's go there. So they want you to come in and talk about the things that you're talking about. What could you do for Black-owned companies?
That's a great question. There's several things. So I push back a little bit, Phil, on the idea that I've heard people say we need to stop begging white people for jobs and we need to, like, this is going to keep happening. I was in a Clubhouse room that I was hosting and someone came in and said, you know, we've been here for 400 years and this is still happening. Why do you all think that you're going to go into corporate America, which was not created for Black people, and somehow like change the environment? And you know, I respect what he said, what he's saying, but I'm optimistic that change can happen. But there are some people that just aren't cut out or don't want to be entrepreneurs. So you know, someone had said to me, well, Black people need to just be entrepreneurs, own their own businesses, stop begging the white man for a job. And I do think that there's value in, and I love being an entrepreneur. I love the fact that I'm only betting on and relying on myself for my success. I'm also in a university, in a predominantly white institution. But I think that white supremacy can also be replicated within Black institutions and Black structures within HBCUs. So I think that it's important.
Oh yes. And they call it Democrat first.
Yeah.
That's white supremacy too.
Yeah, so I think that that's also important, is because there's this idea that like, oh, you know, if we focus on only Black-owned things, Black-owned businesses, Black-owned this, Black-owned that, that we're gonna get rid of white supremacy. And Black people uphold white supremacy too. You know, we see the Candace Owens of the world, and we see the people, the tap dancers, as you say, who uphold white supremacy too. So I think that getting out of these white structures can help, but it doesn't completely remove white supremacy. So I think having these conversations about the ways that anti-Blackness can even show up within our own communities, you know, between colorism, between all of these things. And you and I have talked about these sort of issues between Black immigrants and Black Americans, and the relationship that we have can be strained. So I think that opening up these conversations about ways that me as a Black person, I might uphold white supremacy. I had someone tell me, you need to change your hair in the university setting because wearing braids is not an acceptable hairstyle for a Black professor in a white classroom. That is you as a Black person trying to put your idea of what is professional onto me. So I can't grow my hair or wear my hair in styles that my ancestors were wearing, that my ancestors created. And yet this person, Molly Sue over here, can do it and it's no issue. So I think having these conversations with Black-owned businesses about ways that white supremacy can be sort of duplicated within our structures, but also for those white entrepreneurs that want to work with these large companies, how do you position yourself to work with these larger companies as suppliers? A lot of companies are looking for supplier diversity, which just basically means companies want to work with vendors that are Black and people of color. So how do you position yourself as a Black entrepreneur to get to be in these sorts of partnerships, if that's what you want? So I think that there's a number of different ways that I could help Black-owned businesses, and I want to help Black-owned businesses. I love helping my own people. I just haven't had the opportunity as much as I would love to.
Okay, that's definitely good to know, because that possibly can change. So you mentioned you say it was a Black person at the PWI told you not to wear your hair like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, you know, because the boule, I'm talking about them for a minute. The boule do not like natural hairstyles at all. They want you to have, you know, perm, you know, the creamy crack in your hair, or your weave, the weave, you know, and they don't want brothers to grow their hair out. I mean, oh my God, you can't wear that. I mean, that's just not professional. And yes, you're right. The boule is literally white supremacy in blackface.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us, I mean, some people might be offended by this, but I think you got to do a lot of tap dancing to ascend in any of these white structures. What my experience, when I've seen Black folks in these high positions, there's a lot of that sort of conforming and assimilation that they had to do. Just being honest, I think if I was in corporate, I don't think I would be promoted by having jumbo braids in my hair. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think the reality of it, you have to conform a lot more than I'm not a corporate person. I could never be in corporate. I could never be, that's not me. And I recognize that. And I think that you have to compromise a lot of yourself as a Black person to ascend, and I know some people may disagree with me, but that's personally, I just feel like you have to sacrifice and compromise way too much of yourself than I feel comfortable. People have to code switch, people have to change their hair, they have to change, all of these things. And it's like, I don't think that that's a comfortable way to live. If you're trying to just get something on your resume and say, oh yeah, I worked here for a couple years, do what you got to do. But I just don't know if these structures are sustainable for us. I want to help white companies be sustainable for Black people. I want to help companies create environments where Black people feel safe, where Black people don't have to worry, and there's that psychological safety aspect. A lot of companies, a lot of us are looking over our shoulder and just watching our back until we get that pink slip, or until we, so I just think that, like, the reality of it is, I wish every Black person could quit these white institutions that were not created for us and say, all right, I'm going to do my own thing. But I know that that's not going to happen. So I feel like my focus is, how do I help these leaders create a safer environment for these marginalized people, for us, for Black people? How do we do that? Is what I'm asking. And if for some people it's leaving corporate America, I advocate for that. But for other people, for financial reasons, they can't leave. There's people there's something called the Black tax, where as a Black person, my money is going 5, 10, 20 different places. I'm sending my aunt money. I'm giving this person, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. So for a lot of us, we can't just say, all right, I'm leaving. And I recognize that. And I know that for some, those are the people that I'm trying to advocate for. Those people that aren't able to just chuck the deuces and leave, is like, I want to come in and say, this is what you need to do based on what your employees are saying, your Black employees. This is what you need to do to create more equity and to help them feel more safe.
But we do know you got to sell out, basically, to send to corporate America. You're not going to go in being the unsafe Negro. Let's say that much. You got to have that smile, and you got to show all them teeth, and your eyes got to be white, and yes, massa, and I sure like your kids. That's basically what you got to do.
Did you ever work in corporate?
Did I ever work in corporate America? No. No, Lord, no. I'm not made for corporate America. I have my own corporate America now.
Yeah,
I don't need them now. Petrochemical industry, yes, but I didn't get to the ranks of that because I'm not gonna sell myself out. I'm a man first. I'm not gonna have some dumb, uneducated Mzungu male talking to me crazy. Let me tell you something, Sister Janice, talking to me crazy. And because I need a job or I'm trying to ascend up. That's not going to happen. I said, I'll be at the bottom forever in corporate America because you're not going to punk me about no job.
Yeah.
You understand? And that's what they got to do. They want, especially Black men, to not be masculine. Black men walking around here put it like this. Now, you're Billy Porter. Oh, man, you get to CEO position. But a person like me, nah, that's just not going to work. What they say, have said to me in the past, you're kind of militant. I say, you doggone right I am. And I love that that's a compliment to me coming from you.
Yeah, they don't want Black people that, they want the safe, like you said, the safe Black people. They want the safe, that'll smile, that won't push back, I was reading an article this morning about Nicole Hannah, I'm forgetting her last name, the Black woman, the sister who created the 1619 Project.
Nicole Hannah Jones.
Nicole Hannah Jones. She was denied tenure at UNC, and everyone in the department was shocked. And I'm just like, We see this over and over and over. Cornel West, same
That
thing.
happened to him at Harvard. He got denied tenure.
You could have a Pulitzer Prize. You could have you could be like a Grammy or this or that. You could have whatever accolades people prop up, and they'll still find a reason not to. If you're one of those that is controversial, I guarantee we all know it's because of the 1619 Project. If that wasn't something that she had spearheaded and she wasn't part of, she definitely would have got. I was just reading the story and I was just like, no surprise there. She's not a safe, she's not a safe Black person. So you can't have someone like that rising in the ranks.
Yeah, well, it's like this. It's like, but see, this is where it goes back to what I was talking about. I have a thing about my dignity and my self-respect, right? And if I'm that educated, I'm Harvard educated or whatever kind of educated I am, I'm not gonna sit there and let y'all just treat me any kind of way. I gotta do something else. I say, because I know I've transcended y'all. Like I say, a tenure. I mean, okay, I got it, fine. I still have transcended. She probably one of the smartest people on the campus, if not the smartest. Cornel West, probably one of the smartest people in that university, and they always devalue Black people. Like one thing, Omarosa said I thought was the greatest thing ever. She told it directly to a white woman. She says, I have to be exceptional. You can be mediocre and still get the world. And that white woman looked at her, and I'm like, that is the truest thing ever about them. They can be mediocre. A mediocre professor at UNC can get tenure over Nicole Hannah-Jones easily. And you probably seen it.
Yeah. Oh, all the time. And so I'm just like, I meet a lot of people who are like, why do you even try? You're fighting a losing battle. People will write it underneath my Instagram and say, sister, why are you even fighting this losing battle? And it's like, I gotta fight for the Black people that aren't in positions. Not everybody is able to it was hard for me when I started my business. I didn't have anyone to ask. I didn't know anyone that was doing diversity consulting. I didn't know the one person that I knew. I don't even know this person, but in the New York City area, there's like one main person, very well known, white person who like everyone kind of goes to. And I didn't know anyone that was Black that was doing this. I didn't know. Most of my friends, they work in corporate, or they do, they work in these large corporate, whether it's a law firm or a consulting company or whatever. I didn't have any friends that were business owners. So I didn't have anyone to ask. My parents were business owners, but 20, 30 years ago. So it was a struggle for me. And I recognized that if I didn't do those first few years, my business wasn't expanding, and I believed so much in my vision that I didn't want to give it up. And I'm glad I didn't. But if I had just said, okay, this isn't going where I think it's going to go, let me just stop, I would have been, found myself, I don't know, doing the academia or doing corporate or something, but I think that the reality of it is a lot of us aren't in the position where we can just leave these structures. So I really focus on how do we make the structures more safe for those of us who are not able to leave. And I think that the reality of it is, I don't know how sustainable these structures are over 20, 30, 40, 50 years. My goal would be some of the folks that are coming in and trying to create changes will make these companies more sustainable. But I'm tired of people saying, well, look, this company just put a Black person on the board. Okay. That doesn't mean that this Black person has my interests or our interests at heart. We see that person could be a Tim Scott. That person could be let me deny that racism exists because I know that that's what's going to get me in good with white people. So it's just like representation itself isn't to me that huge of a sign of progress. People like to point to representation and say, well, look, we got this person and we got that person. And I'm like, yeah, but how are they actually helping the Black people? How are they actually helping the cleaning staff? How are they actually helping the Black person that doesn't even have a seat at the table? Who's not even in these rooms? So that's really what I want to help companies with, and what I've been trying to help companies with is those types of companies where, there's not a lot of us. I know Jay-Z said in a song, he described it as a domino. And he said, Domino, always see a few blacks the higher I go. You know, it's like a white sea with a few black dots here and there. So I think that that's really what I want to focus on. I would love for us all to divest from these white supremacist institutions and say we're going to start our own. But I think the reality of it is some people don't want to. Some people like the comfort of corporate. There's safety in being in the corporate structure. Being a business owner can be scary. The what if I fail? You're paying for insurance on your own. There's all of these things you have to factor in. And for a lot of people, it's just safer to stay. But I think for your psychological well-being, some of us just have to leave, because that's what it's going to take. Some of these structures aren't willing to change and aren't going to change. And so, I think that the best thing for Black people in those structures is to leave. But I do think that some of these companies are redeemable. And maybe that's the optimist in me, maybe because I do this work and I try to be optimistic about the change that can actually happen. But I don't know, Phil, do you feel, I feel like I know what you're going to say, but do you feel like change can actually happen in corporate America?
Well, corporate America is just a small blip of an institution in America, right?
Mm-hmm.
We both agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
We look at every institution that's built like schools. We talked about that. You could talk about entertainment. You could talk about different levels of government. Any institution that's built, every institution that's built is rooted in what? Anti-Black racism. That's the foundation of America. Now, from the time that we arrived at the shores of America to now, is it safe to say anti-Black racism is alive and kicking?
I would say yes.
Okay. So that means it's alive and kicking in all institutions, right? So for me, what I have come to realize, I used to be like you, maybe 10 years ago. I was like you. I was very optimistic about certain people, certain things. But as I have gotten older and seen many, 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 many stories, analyzed the movements, analyzed, history, just analyzed so much, I've come to a realization that is the white supremacy is a culture. That's their culture at this point. People that do things for hundreds of years is a culture. And I've learned that it would be best for Black people to do their own thing. I get what you're saying. Yes, entrepreneurship is scary. Oh, yes, it is, because now it's all on you. But you know what? You say it's safety there, but is it really safety? Because at any moment they can give you a pink slip. Well, that's considered failure if you lose a job, right? And they get, at least if you're failing, you can see it coming and you can make preparations for it. But they'll pop up one day and just lay you off. And we are first fire, last hired on everything, right? You know that you even admitted somebody at the top is either Tim Scott or Jim Crow Clyburn, no matter what, that they the exact same people, right? So for me, I just think that we need to, you mentioned the word divest. I'm glad you mentioned it in that sense and not the other sense. But yes, I believe it will be safer for us. And I believe we'll be more economically powerful, which has been proven back when we were during the time of the civil rights movement, things like that, where we were actually, what they call it segregation. But I think we just need to separate from the system and create our own. You understand what I'm saying? Now we're going to have those Black people. Of course, they're happier they don't want to do no work for themselves. They're happier to be under master because they used to master doing the heavy lifting. But for those of us who don't want to have to sell ourselves out, those of us who don't want to deal with the racism, like you're saying, they clearly don't even want you to even address racism, and they're paying you to not even do your job. Really, if you think about it, they're not paying you to do your job.
Yeah.
So they rather you come in, give them a feel-good message, pay you a little money, say, oh yeah, I did this diversity training, I did this unconscious bias training, when we know it's a bunch of BS, and you look at the hiring and could tell it's BS, right? So I just think, like I said, keep the optimism, but I just think if you're going to be in America, we need to remove ourselves and establish ourselves. Now, for me, what my optimism and my hope is connecting with my brothers and sisters, like in the Caribbean, connecting with them in Africa, especially the continent of Africa. That's where my optimism and hope is at, because I see the hope of Africa. I don't really see hope here. These people are wicked to me. This place is evil.
In what way? How do you see hope in the folks in Africa. And I know you just went to
the reason why I see hope is, number one, they have a young population. The average age of Africans is 25 years old, and they're not like the Africans of old, like the ones that's like the leaders, like in your parents' home country. They not own that. They are part of the information age too. They get it. A lot of them are waking up. A lot of them want to change their countries. A lot of them saying, "We sick of these people here. We ready to do whatever we got to do to get free now. We want a new Africa, right?" So the younger people on the African continent are a lot smarter, a lot faster on some things than the ones of old. So I see a lot of hope. You see like Ghana doing great things. You see Rwanda doing great things. They wasn't doing that even 5 years ago, right? You see Kenya, they're booming. You see different things going on in South Africa. Yes, problems are there, but we're seeing these economies grow at rapid speed. And I'm like, we should be a part of that before it's too late. So I see more hope in, like, for instance, you can easily get land that you could not even get here in America.
Would you stay here?
Do what?
Or would you want to stay in the States? Or could you see yourself moving to like a Ghana where they're welcoming Black people to come, Black Americans come here, own land, become citizens? Like, where would you stay here in the U.S.?
I've already made my decision on that. Like, my plans are already enacted. My company is even registered in Kenya, right? So I got 2 people that work for me in Kenya. I'm already got a play going right now. So my play is, of course, I got family here in America. Of course, this is the country I was born and raised in. But my ultimate goal is to be 80 to 90% of my time on the continent, and just maybe 10% of my time because of business and visiting family. That's my ultimate goal, because I just don't see it here. Because me personally, it's like these people are not going to change. I was just doing some stories, Black history, American history stories, and literally the same thing they did in 1910. They did January 6, 2021. These people do not change, Janice. They don't. Like I said, study history. Nothing has changed.
Yeah.
Am I willing to at least listen? Immigrants leave their countries all the time. I know the excuse. Immigrants leave their countries to come here. And then I'm like, you know why they do it? Because coming here, they already getting a leg up. In their countries, they suffering. You can't compare like you and me to those who's leaving the continent, because our dollars gives us more an advantage coming in. You know what I'm saying? So that's just my opinion. People can do what they want to do, and I'm not fighting them on that. And every time brothers and sisters do go to the continent, they actually see it for themselves. I don't have to tell them. They see the opportunities. They see like the psychological peace that you have, right? So let me ask you a question: what you're doing? Like, how are you getting connected on the continent? Because you have a lot of expertise that can be definitely used on the continent.
I could definitely be more tapped in. I think as far as, my parents' country, my parents are from Cameroon. I think the way you feel about the U.S., Phil, is how I feel about Cameroon. I just feel like it's a lost cause. I feel like colonialism did a number on Africa and a lot of African countries. And I don't even fault the leaders, because all of these are symptoms of white supremacy, where you're doing things. Cameroon is one of those countries, one of the several countries like Haiti also, that pays a colonial tax to France. So you colonized us, and then we are also like required to store our money in French banks. And it's like the rabbit hole goes so deep with like the number that, like the pillaging and the like everything that was done. These countries were literally stripped of everything, every piece of. One of the things that I'm sure you found when you visited different countries in Africa is the communalism. The people are so focused on how does what I do impact the society. And I think we've been so far in Cameroon, and a lot of West African countries were removed from that. And that's a direct result of colonialism. We're not an individualistic people. We do things, and it's like everything that one person does impacts the larger group. You know, it takes a village to raise a child, all of that. And we've kind of deviated so far from that, where leadership in these countries is focusing on their money. How can I better myself financially, even though this is going to continue to cripple my people? I'm letting people from different countries come over here and start businesses. I'm letting, you know, in Ghana, I know you posted about, and I watched your video on the chief. I don't know where he was from. The chief from China, I believe, the Chinese man who was made into a chief in Ghana. Like, all of these things are like money and capitalism, and these are not values that are inherent to Africans. Africans aren't, these aren't things that, and all of these again are direct results of colonialism. So I think that the way you feel about the US is how I feel about honestly how I feel about Cameroon and some of these other countries, where it's like the number that the British and that the Dutch and that the Portuguese and that the French did on these countries is so deep rooted. I mean, I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic. I know Angela Davis is like, we have no choice but to be optimistic. I'm optimistic, but I think I focus so much of my energy on the US because this is where I live. This is where my family now lives. And so I think so much of my focus is there that I'm like, how do I divert my attention away from the US? Isn't even like, we're barely scratching the surface of solving our issues. So I think so much of my money and energy and my time I pour into the US. But if there's ways that I could, you know, help the people within the continent or on the continent, that would be like my sort of focus. And if you have any ideas, I'm definitely all open. But I think my country anyway, or my parents' country, you know, and my mom doesn't like me to go too deep into it because they're now going through, you know, colonialism, where the English speaking, the Anglophone side and the Francophone side are fighting. So it's like almost this thing where the French speaking folks in Cameroon have all the money, the resources, the schools are taught in French, and the English speakers get none of these resources. The people in power within Cameroon are the French speaking folks. So it's like there's this fight from the English speaking side because they're being suppressed, they're being silenced, they're being all of these things. If you look into it, I definitely encourage you. But my mom gets worried when I talk about these things because even though my mom is from the French speaking side, she's still like, you know, don't be too outspoken about these things because if you are saying all this and then you want to come back to Cameroon, they can make things difficult for you. So my mom is always like, stop talking about it so much. But I mean, it's real and it's honest, and it's just Cameroon is just the number that colonialism did on that country is just like, I feel defeated. I don't want to say it feels hopeless, but I feel just like I don't know what's going to change because the president has been in power for, I don't know, 37, 38, 39 years.
Yeah.
The
Paul
longest.
Biya. Yeah, I've heard a lot about Paul Biya. I've talked to Cameroonians about him, and nobody has nothing good to say about him. I'm gonna say that much. Not a thing good to say whatsoever. But you know, Cameroon has its issues. But you know what? Paul Biya is not. He's not eternal. He's not going to live forever, right? So and that's Cameroon's issues. That's not the whole continent. Yes, Ghana had that issue, but that's not the whole Ghana. So I don't want to say, well, let's throw Ghana away now. Now, getting rid of France would help West Africa. Yes. I mean, and that needs to happen. Those countries need to say, F y'all, go back where you come from. That's why I recently heard that France talking about they on the brink of a civil war. And I'm like, ooh, please. I hope you destabilize. And I know they're going to get mad I'm saying that. I don't care. Because all the evil they've done in West Africa, you deserve to be destabilized.
Haiti is the poorest country in the world. The poorest, all because of France. It's just like people talk about the US. I'm like, the US is bad, but like the bigger, badder, older sibling of the US is England and is France. And I don't know who did more of a number on these countries, but I'm like, I just see what France did in West Africa and in Haiti, and I'm just like, we don't even talk about this. we're so focused on, you know, and I get it because I heard somebody say, I only have energy to focus on here in the States. They're so
Yeah,
like,
people say that to me all the time. They tell me, well, you know, why you not focused on? I was like, the majority of my content I make is about here. I was like, what
yeah,
are you talking about? You know, so that's not. I'm not even the guy even to relate that to. I'm
yeah,
just saying that at the end of the day, like I said, for me, I just seen in the 2 African countries I've been to. I went to Ethiopia, went to Kenya so far, right?
mhm.
I've seen the opportunities that's there. Is it perfect? No, but no place on earth is perfect, right? I mean, you don't have to go somewhere that's having certain issues. You can go to somewhere where you feel, okay, this is a good situation for me. This is what I want to do. My thing is the Chinese are flooding the African continent. People want to complain about the Chinese doing it, but they don't want to say, okay, well, let me go make my stake there. Because when I talked to Ethiopian businessmen, they told me we rather do business with you. We want Black American people to come here, work with us, make business, get land. And say, we want it's all this land out here for you. You want to come
People
get
don't
it?
even know how to do that. And like you said, you posted recently, Black people, get your passports. Step
Yeah.
one, we got to get our passports. A lot of us don't have passports. We don't even know the process of like, how do you even buy land overseas? People don't know that. You know, so I think, Phil, like you're teaching people a lot on your platform, and you could be like helping people better understand. People don't understand how easy it is to get land, and Ghana wants Black Americans to come and get land, you know, and come back home, as they say. So it's like people don't know the process, and in Cameroon it's challenging, it's difficult, but like you said, you don't have to go to Cameroon. And it's, you know, how disappointed I am when folks tell me they did their ancestry and they're like, I saw I'm Cameroonian on my ancestry, I saw yours too, Phil. And it's just like, I'm like, damn, like I wish I could take people there, but it's like, I'm just like, I wouldn't feel that. It's a lot of
Well,
corruption.
but it's like this. It's like this, Dr. Janice. At one point in time, Rwanda had a genocide. Okay, almost 1 million people killed. And look at Rwanda today. You know, Paul Kagame and the Rwandan people have really turned that country around since the genocide. So if they went through a complete genocide there, and look at Rwanda today, Kigali is one of the cleanest cities on the African continent, right? And they are really, you know, starting to do well. They heard they're doing more. I know a brother who's over there right now, Ty Nichols. He's over there getting land and building homes and doing all kind of things over there, right? So I'm just saying that yes, it could be bad right now in Cameroon. I get it, and it's horrible. But nothing, like my grandma used to say, nothing stays the same. Nothing gonna last forever. And
But
even with the French doing what they doing.
couldn't you say that about the US?
About the U.S., I believe the U.S. has had its time, and it's time for a judgment for the U.S. because what they have done, they gotta pay for the blood they have spilled of our ancestors, and other people too, not just our ancestors. You got to remember they slaughtered Native Americans too. They slaughtered a lot of people, and they got to pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
On the African continent, okay, they have been just as victimized as we were through colonialism.
Mm-hmm.
If you start studying colonialism, a lot of things that happened here happened right over there due to the British and the French and the Portuguese and the Spanish, you know, from Spain. And no. White supremacy is facing the judgment of God, and we're seeing that
Mm-hmm.
now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't like to talk about this, but I go spiritual just for 1 minute.
Yeah.
You know, when
Yeah.
they talk about not having no babies, you know, in the Bible, they teach when God cursed your womb, that comes from Him. When your womb is cursed, is why you're not having no children. But you know, I can go a little bit spiritual, but I'm not going to do that in this video.
No,
But
I think that like absolutely, even, you know, there might be people watching who aren't Christian, but even just from like a spiritual standpoint, when you think about karma, as a country, we've incurred all of this karma, we slaughter, pillage, destruction, all of that stuff. And you know, what is it, for every action there is an equal but opposite reaction. We haven't paid the piper. We haven't, like, all of the things that were done 400 years ago haven't been rectified. So I don't know what's going to happen, you know, and I try to be optimistic,
but
but I just think things are going to come, things are going to come back up. They haven't been dealt with.
but Janice, some things were done just 121 years ago. For instance, when I was doing a story about Slocum, Texas, and how this one brother who was a slave in Slocum, Texas, 1910, he had a farm. He had a dairy. He had several businesses. He owned 700 acres of land. This one black man that came out of slavery. And just because this white mob want to come in and just run black people and kill black people and everything, and they took all their homes, taking all that brother's 700 acres. I mean, it has to be a payday for that. It cannot keep continuing. You say black people don't own anything. We had hundreds and hundreds of acres of land out of slavery. So no, like I said, I cannot look at this place as just like, oh, it's going. And then you have on top of that, white supremacy has weaponized people to come into this country, and now we public enemy number one. Every group that come in here, for the most part, know that if you want to get something for your group, just lie on black people and say they did you something. That's all you gotta say.
Yeah.
Look at the Asian hate crime bill. There you go.
Yeah.
They about to be just as protected as the bald eagle. People don't want to think about it like that.
No, I was having a conversation with someone about that, and I just said it's interesting because I didn't know that there was an Emmett Till bill that they've been trying to push through since forever that hasn't
anti-lynching bill.
Right. There hasn't been a lot of traction. And yeah, I'm not even gonna get into that because I don't want to get, but yeah, there's just a different.
And then on top of that, Dr. Janice, I would feel more hopeful if we didn't have so many black people in prominent positions sabotaging me and you. When you got people, like you said, in those corporations sabotaging people like me and you on the job, right? You got all these black politicians. Congressional Black Caucus is the largest caucus on the Hill, and yet they will side with everything else except something for us. That's sabotaging us. You understand what I'm saying? You got people, we say, hey, listen, we need a black agenda. We need reparations. We need this. We need that. Oh, no, just vote anyway. Shut up and vote. Don't be talking about not voting for this party, whatever like that. And then black people do it. And once again, black people left holding an empty bag again. That's the stuff I'm talking about, Dr. Janice, that don't leave me hopeful when I see so many people sabotaging black folk in this country. And this system galvanizes and incentivize those to sell us out too.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I think if enough people wake up and realize what's happening, which I do think that the murder of George Floyd just set off this set of dominoes. And I think people are waking up, black people included, like things have to change. And I have to just stay hopeful that that's actually going to happen. I think part of my job is like harm reduction. The harm has already been done. How can we stop the harm, stop the bleeding, stop continuing to harm black people? We know we've harmed them. How do we rectify it? How do we support these folks? What are we doing? What do we do now? Where do we go from here? Essentially is what I want these leaders to ask, is like, recognize you've caused harm to black people. Every black person working in corporate has been harmed by leaders, by the company. How do we stop this harm from happening? How do we make the situations and the lives of our black employees better, which will then benefit everybody?
I just think it's only two solutions just for me at this point. Just how I feel. If some things change, I change my mind. I'm always open to change my mind, but I'm a firm believer of this. At this point, separate, expatriate. That's the only thing you can do.
How would we separate if we aren't going to expatriate? Or do you feel like you have to expatriate and that black people?
No, I said separate or expatriate. In other words, separate would mean this. For instance, black folks say, okay, one form of separation is to separate all our money out of the Wells Fargo's and the Bank of America's. So we pull all our money out and go to the black-owned banks in this country, black-owned credit unions. That's one way to separate. Next step is separate. Okay, we already know about homeschool. We can teach our own children now, or we can set up schools. Now, let's say remove all our children and put them in our schools, right? Controlled by us, taught by us, teach them the history.
You need that Dr. Umar school. Where is it at?
Okay, I'm not going to even go there, but I'm gonna leave that alone. But what I'm saying is, and even if he was to get that up and running, and it was 100% full throttle, that's only one. Yeah. It's more than we need more than one. We need thousands upon thousands of schools all over the country. I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying?
But Phil, everything in this country is controlled by white people, so we can't really divest from whiteness as long
I
as we're.
mean, well, if you're going to live in this country, I said that's on you. That's on your best bet. You can do it. Now, if you want to be completely, I'm gonna say, and I know people gonna say, well, you can't escape white supremacy. It's in Africa. Listen, let me tell you something. You're gonna deal more with black folks with issues than dealing with them. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't, like I said, I didn't even think about them while I was over there. I didn't even hardly see them, right? You know, but I just think that's an excuse to stay underneath them folks. But I'm just saying, if you're gonna do it, you either have to separate it. Like for instance, the Asian community, right? They separate. They're in their own communities. I've been to them in Houston. They got their own grocery stores, their own banks, law offices, doctors, whatever you could think of. They have it right there. They don't have to leave their community for nothing. That's what black folks need. We need our own everything, just like they have in our own section of town, and that's that. Why can't we do that? If other groups do it all the time, Asians do it, Arabs do it, all these different groups do it all the time. Why can't we do it? Why do we have to be ingrained with them when these other groups aren't?
Yeah.
That's what I mean by either separate, like the Asians are doing, or expatriate. That's the only thing I just think, in my opinion, will work. I could be wrong, but from what I've seen over time, I'm not wrong, because integration failed. It failed. We had more black businesses during segregation than we do today.
Yeah. Yeah. We got to take it like Marcus Garvey said, go back to Africa, or at least go to the Caribbean, you know?
You can go to, I tell people all the time, you don't have to go to the continent of Africa. You can go check out the Caribbean. You can go check whatever you want to do. I say just at least have the option. Listen, you're an American citizen. It's your right. We built this country, yes. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't have an option.
Yeah. Yeah. Because a lot of descendants of enslaved people said, why should we leave? We built this. It's like you spend forever working on a project. You don't get the credit for it. And then you leave before anybody you get to reap the fruits of your labor. And I wonder, I guess to take on your mindset, will Black folks or descendants of enslaved people ever reap the fruits of their labor in this country? Would be my question.
Well, my question is, do you want to die with the same problem? You want to become an old man or old woman and still the same problem? Or do you want to have some peace somewhere? At least some peace in your life. Do you want to be on a nice beach somewhere, drinking nice fresh papaya juice or something, and just enjoying the beach and enjoying the waves, and don't have to worry about no police over there or nothing messing with you, because you're just doing your thing, or you getting a little family gathering, right? I'm just saying, eventually we got to have some peace in our life. Eventually.
Yeah.
Our lifespan is getting shortened in this country based off of the stress that we deal with, the health conditions due to the food we're fed here. I mean, when you go to the continent, you eat over there about a week. You come here, your stomach's in knots, right? You eat the food.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because this food is horrible. It's not the food over there, it's the food here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's like I said, that's my opinion. Like I said, people welcome to do what they want. They can say my bones are buried here, and just my ancestors' bones are buried here, and they also buried on the continent too. So I don't know. That's just my opinion. And I'm only looking for people that think like me on that. They're sick and tired of being sick and tired and trying to make a plan to do that. Everybody else, I'm not fighting with them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think I loved when I went to Ghana. I love Ghana. I could see myself being in Ghana, like for the long haul. Cameroon is going to take some work. I'm hopeful, but I don't know, cautiously optimistic about Cameroon, but I could see myself being in Ghana. Ghana was, the people were so nice, and just, I don't know. I completely agree. I don't know how much longevity a lot of us can have. I don't know. I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic because I do want to create change here, but I'm also like, I don't know. I guess I'm just like stuck in the middle.
Well, just like I said, just in, Biden just signed the Asian hate crime bill. So there you go. And you have our Black politicians smiling with him as he's doing it. So, but yet Black folks don't have a hate crime bill. So yeah, how can I be really optimistic at that? But we'll go on 3 hours talking like this. Dr. Janice, tell people how they can contact you. They have any questions, thoughts, concerns. Let people know.
All of that. I'm on Instagram a lot. So if you're on Instagram, I'm Janice J Nice. If you search for me on here on YouTube, you can catch some of my older videos. I've hidden a lot of them because they kind of got me in trouble. So I've hidden a lot of them. But you should be able to find my YouTube channel, and I'm on LinkedIn as just Janice Gassam Asare. So thank you so much again, Phil, for the opportunity. I really appreciate it, and it's always a pleasure to speak with you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll put her information in the pinned comment. And Dr. Janice is a definitely great friend of the show. So make sure you go over there and follow her page and have some conversation with us. So Dr. Janice, thank you for having this conversation with me today. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much.